I was born in Michigan, and we left there when I was 4 years old and moved to the South. We lived in Tennessee for a year and then moved to Georgia, which is where I've been, North Georgia area, for the rest of my life since then. My mom really wanted us to be in church, so she took us to some Baptist churches when I was a kid. And it wasn't like a every Sunday thing. It wasn't something that was of the utmost importance, but she wanted to have us in church. She wanted to instill that in us, those values, church values in us. And we just went to Baptist churches through elementary school, through middle school. And it wasn't until in middle school was the first time I ever had any doubts. I mean, the concept of there not being a God was something that was completely foreign to me. It was something that had never even entered my brain. I mean, we were born, we were created by God, and we were just here. That's just how it was. There was no even entertaining of a thought of there not being a God. But when I was in 7th or 8th grade, I can't remember which one, it might have been 8th grade, I was around 13, I guess. My friend Justin, we were at the track for gym class, I guess, and I still remember vividly where we were sitting, but we got talking about the Bible. He was always an atheist. I mean, he was very outspoken against religion, I guess, and the first time any doubt crept in my mind was when he started talking about Noah's Ark, and he asked me if I believed the stuff in the Bible, and I said yes, because of course I did. I mean, that's all I had ever been taught. And he asked me why. He asked me if do you really believe in Noah's Ark? Yeah, why wouldn't I? And then he started explaining all the reasons why it didn't make any sense. 2 of every animal, how would they all travel from all over the world to be there? How would they get back to where they are? How would the kangaroos get back to Australia? How would the penguins get back to the South Pole? How did all the animals get there to begin with? Just the logistics of it. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But I guess somewhere in my brain, I was just thinking, well, I mean, God could still perform this miracle to make all the animals come to Noah. It's not that far-fetched. If you believe in all the other miracles of the Bible, then you would believe that too. Sorry, I had to pause there and get my straight vodka. This is definitely straight vodka and not Bud Light seltzer mango flavored on ice. Anyway, so yeah, Noah's Ark, 7th grade, that was the first doubt that I ever had because of Justin. But after that, I just went back to believing the same way that I was before, because you can sort of tuck that away in your brain. You know, it's cognitive dissonance, I guess. Like if something doesn't make sense to you, you can still justify it by saying that, well, God could do anything. So that's what I did. And it wasn't until I was 16, in I guess it was 11th grade, that things changed for me. A family member started going to this Pentecostal church, and so Mom wanted us to start going there. I went there too, and I walked in, and it was definitely different from the Baptist church that I went to. All the Baptist churches that I went to, they were sort of mild, you know. But I went to that Pentecostal church, and as soon as I walk in, it's like a concert in there. There are people just running around, literally running around the church, flags being waved, people jumping and screaming and making crazy noises, and the music was a lot more upbeat and louder. I was like, whoa, I have such a visual memory. I can still just see walking into that church and what that was like. Re-experiencing that is just crazy. But so I sort of, I guess, slowly crept into believing the same things as that church. We went every week. I mean, we went Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and I just started believing that way. And if you know anything about Pentecostal churches, they're very emotional. The sermons are very salvation based and sin based, and they put so much guilt on you that even if you're like living your life for Jesus the best way you can, you still by the end of the service feel guilty and like you're a sinner and like you're not worth much. And so they do altar calls, and you go up to the altar and rededicate your life to Christ. Well, I hadn't really dedicated my life to Christ to begin with, and I would still go up to the altar and they would pray for me, lay hands on me, on my forehead, you've seen the videos, and people would be falling out in the spirit around me. And I started falling down too, but it was just not real. I would just be like, well, I don't want to stand here awkwardly while they put their fingers on my forehead, and I'm just like standing, and they're like pushing you like, all right, is he gonna fall? And so eventually I would just fall. But so I was trotting along in that church. I liked the music. I liked the feeling of the church. I liked the people. Everybody was pretty cool. And of course, I started reading my Bible more and started really paying attention more in church. And then I started bringing my Bible to school. Still didn't really know a whole lot about the Bible, but I would bring it to school. Probably more of like a, look, I'm a Christian, here's my Bible type thing. But I was reading it. It was not like I wasn't a Christian, but I still hadn't really given my life to Jesus. I admired Jesus. I liked the Bible. I liked the teachings. I liked the Gospels. But I hadn't taken that step to actually really start serving him until when I was a senior. Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames came to church. This play, I guess you'd call it a play, drama, presentation, musical, I don't know. And it's called Heaven's Gates and Hell's Flames, and it's like the scare tactic extravaganza. They do like skits, and it's these kids. One of the skits stood out to me big time back then, and it still does. These kids are in high school in the skit, which is what I was at the time, and they're drinking and driving, and then they get in a wreck and they all die, and they wake up at the gates of heaven, and then they want to get in and they don't get in because they are sinners. So they don't have Jesus in their heart, and so they, like, these demons come from off stage and grab them and take them off the stage. And so it's like shocking. And for a 17-year-old kid, I was like, oh shit, I better get right. So I went down to the altar, gave my life to Jesus. They did that play, sorry, low battery. They did that play a few times in that weekend, and I went every night. And I went to the altar twice, I think, because like, oh yeah, I'm still a piece of shit. Let me go down there and give my life, make sure I'm good. I don't want to burn forever. But after that night, I really became passionate for God, for reading the Bible, and that became my life from 18, basically 17, until I was 25, 26, but getting ahead of myself a little bit. I met my now ex-wife, at that church, and she was young. I was young too. We got married. I was almost 23. She was almost 19. But it was like that culture. Of course, nobody forced us to get married. But she lived with her stepdad, who was a Bible-thumping asshole. He would literally lock her in the basement and say she couldn't go to church because I was there. So I got her out of that situation. proposed to her, got her out of that situation. We got married. And it was a combination of her crazy religious stepdad and just the culture of the Bible Belt, the culture of don't fuck somebody before you're married to them. And so, of course, when you're in your early 20s, late teens, you have crazy fucking hormones. Sorry for the language, but I'm not really sorry for the language. You have crazy hormones at that age, and so you don't want to lust, you don't want to fornicate, you don't want to sin. You would rather get married and please God. And so that's what I did. And our marriage was good for a while, but then it fizzled apart. I mean, you don't really know somebody. You don't even know yourself when you're that age, when you're 20, 22. And you know, she was 18. You don't know yourself at that age. And sorry, I don't know if it looks like I'm looking at you or looking at the lens. I'm trying to figure out where to look because I'm a little bit cross-eyed whenever I try to look at the lens, and it looks like I'm looking off the camera, I guess. But, so yeah, I got married. And our marriage was fine for a while, but then it fizzled out, like I said. But before that, this was like 2010, so I would have been 27. I guess it was like, yeah, 2010, 2009. I was 26 or 27. And our church had sort of had a split a year or two before then. And I had gone with the youth pastor at the time instead of staying at that same church that I was at. So I went with the youth pastor to his newer church. And then that church it moved locations, and so I just stopped going as much. And as I stopped going so much to church, I started to realize I was fine without church. I still believed in God and Jesus, but I was okay without going to church. And then I met this coworker of mine who was a preacher. He was a Southern Baptist, I think he was, preacher for a while. But now he was an atheist, and he was asking me one day, because I used to walk around the building on my breaks to try to get some exercise, and he was out there smoking, and he asked me my thoughts on the Bible or God. And I told him, yeah, I believe in God. And he asked me why. And I was like, well, I just do. And he said that the church that he was at before really dissuaded him from going to college because like the college was like the devil's playground to them, or I guess higher learning was something that don't educate yourself, because I guess they're afraid that people are going to leave their faith, and they think it's like the work of the devil instead of actually just learning information. But he went to college and he took a religions class, and he learned about all the other religions of the world. He learned about origin stories that were very similar to Jesus, that predated the story of Jesus. And he was like, man, things changed for me when I took that class. And he realized that his religion was his religion because that's what he was born into. And then I was like, holy shit, me too. And just something just clicked for me right then. And I was like, if I was born anywhere else in the world, or to parents who believe differently, I would believe differently too. If I were born in India, I would be. I recorded everything that you've watched up until this point yesterday, Saturday, and I thought I lost it all because the camera app on my phone crashed, but then this morning it was saved in my recording, so we're good. I'm going to finish my own testimony now. So after I talked to that guy at work who used to be a preacher, and I realized he was right, that, you know, wherever I was born would be what I believed. And that's not always the case, okay? I know, because I have people tell me that all the time. Well, that's not always how it is. That's true, it's not. But 80 to 90% of the time, that's the case. So just going by statistics there, you're most likely going to believe what your parents do, or, you know, the people around you. So it didn't take me long after that conversation to just become an atheist. It was hard because all of my friends were still Christians, but I just remember having a lot of deep thoughts and like, man, I just don't believe anymore. And it wasn't like a real quick deconversion, but probably like over the course of a year, I didn't believe anymore. I didn't call myself an atheist, and I hadn't for years. I kind of became indifferent toward religion after that, and that was 2010, 11, somewhere in there. And after that, I haven't really cared. I know people who are Christians, and it's fine. A lot of my friends are. I didn't have any hostility toward religion, really. I did at first, everybody goes kind of through that angry atheist phase, but at that point I wasn't even calling myself an atheist, but didn't care. Now, I got divorced, and then I didn't really care for a while until this past year, 2019, I began dating someone who was a Seventh-day Adventist, and I was like, it's fine, because whatever, I don't believe, and she can believe, that's fine. And we had that conversation up front, and we were both cool with it. In the end, though, it didn't work out, and it was because of religion. And so she needs somebody who believes in her same God. And that sort of just refueled my fire, because we had so much in common, she and I did. And we really loved each other, but it just couldn't work because of the supernatural, because of God. And that just sort of re-sparked that initial feeling that I had back in 2010 or 2009, whenever it was, that I don't know, I'm done with religion, and I feel like it's important for people to sort of speak out about it. And so that's why I created my account here a couple weeks after our breakup. I've really been pouring myself back into that, because I think it's important that I'm not actively trying to deconvert anybody, but I'm looking for people who were in my same spot, who were kind of leaving the church, leaving their faith, and didn't have a whole lot of resources or people around them who felt the same way. So that's why I'm doing this. I want to be a resource for people, or a friend for people. You can DM me anytime, tell me your situation. If you're struggling with something, let me know. But I guess I just decided that it wasn't that hard to leave. I didn't need a reason to leave my faith, because I never had a very good reason to believe to. I guess when it comes down to it, I get questions a lot like, why did you leave the faith, and what conclusion did you come to that Christ isn't the Son of God? And it's kind of like, once you stop believing in Santa Claus, like, you never really had a great reason to begin with. You just believed because that's what people told you to. And then that leads into the no true Scotsman fallacy, where people will say that I wasn't ever a true Christian to begin with, and I would argue with that big time, because I spent a solid decade of my life serving Jesus, witnessing to people, worshiping, going to church 4 times a week, reading my Bible every day, just striving to live for God. I even had one of my friends put parental controls on my TV with a password that he didn't tell me, so I wouldn't watch bad stuff. I lived for God, but at the end of the day, I can leave just like that, because I realized that the reasons that I believed in the first place had a bad foundation. So that's my own testimony, and I hope that more people will share theirs too, because I think it's pretty cool. #untestimony. Do it. Peace.